Good evening. Just quickly explain myself. I am somewhat different to other comics you may have seen. I'm very big. I have very short hair. And you can't see them, but I'm wearing comfortable shoes. I believe you're with me. To put it bluntly, I am a big old lezo. Yes, quelle surprise. No one ever looks shocked. I should point out that is my preferred term. Big old lezo. You know, because those other words, lesbian, homosexual, they're so cold, so clinical. I like big old lezo. You know, it's sort of warm and cuddly, a little bit friendly. And let's face it, it's just bloody Australian. You know, I just know there are people out there who are going, oh, she's a big old lezo. But she's all right. She drinks beer and she likes chicks. How bad can it be? Big old lezo, stand-up comic. Rare. Not that many of us. You know, we couldn't exactly chuck a conference yet. But if we did, we'd get funding. Yes, well, until recently, anyway. It's made for quite an odd, twisted career path. I've had some very interesting gigs. One of my favourite and oddest started out not that good. It was about 5 years ago. I was doing The Last Laugh down there in Collingwood, and it was an all-women's comics lineup. And I was on later in the night, so I turned up about halfway through and discovered that in the audience was a big table of bucks and a big table of dykes. It was very tense. Because all night the bucks had been shouting, you know, show us your tits, show us your tits. And the dykes, they're getting real angry. It was getting pretty ugly. Now, the woman who was on before me proceeded to do the most viciously anti-male stuff I've ever heard. Even me, big old lezo, was going, oh, now steady on. They're not that bad. You know, they're sort of cute and furry. You know, maybe it's because I don't have to have relationships with you guys, but I just think of you as big marsupials. Leave it at that. But anyway, she was going the blokes. She ended up throwing a drink over the bucks and leaving the stage. And I had to come on and say I was a big old lezo. Now, the bar staff said, look, just go home. Just say you're sick and go home. And the stage manager said, look, give it 5 minutes. If it gets really ugly, just get off. So I walked out on stage, and the boys started heckling, and I just went, oh, look, I'm not real good with that, so could you shut up? And they did. Within 3 minutes, I had them eating out of the palm of my hand. It was fabulous. And then I got to the bit where I actually explained, you know, that I'm a big old lezo. And one of the bucks went, oh, show us your tits anyway. What could I say? Oh, shucks, thanks. Still a real chick after all. But then later on, one of the best bits was I do all this stuff about being mistaken for a man. What a shock. Yes, happens all the time. I have scared so many little old ladies in public toilets. Thinking of getting a T-shirt made up. It's okay, I am a chick. But anyway, I was doing all this stuff, and everyone was laughing. And then one of the guys on the bucks table actually stood up, turned around to the audience, went, don't laugh. She's nice. And I walked off stage that night, I tell you, with a beer in one hand, bought for me by the bucks, and a cigarette from the dykes in the other, just going, I don't understand. But I like it. Comedy is good. Now, another thing that about me that people find quite hard to believe, and that is, I used to be a Mormon. Yes. I was actually born into it, which is quite rare in this country, I think. I didn't leave till I was about 19. So I was a Mormon for 19 years. And I'd just like to say that word again, Mormon, with 2 M's. Not, as was written in a review last year, an ex-moron. Although actually, my whole family were morons. Every Sunday we'd go to the moron church. When we could find it. As we just walked into circles, bumping into each other. Yes, an ex-Mormon, and for 19 years. And I taught Sunday school. Oh, no. Scary thought, there's a few worried parents out there. I sang in the choir. I had plaits down to my waist. And people never believe me. People think I make this up, so I brought them along. This is my real hair. Chopped off my head when I was 19. I should now like to do a brief Mormon impersonation. Hi, have you heard of the Book of Mormon? And just think, if life had turned out slightly different, this could have been knocking on your door. Now, the great thing about having these plaits still is I can actually read these plaits, somewhat like you would read the rings of a tree, what has been chopped down. See, because this hair that came out of my head when I was about 12. So this is your pure Mormon hair down here. Not a single dirty, naughty thought. And it continues to be good, pure Mormon hair up till about here. This is when I was about 17 and discovered that lesbians existed. This is 2 years of heterosexual panic. And about here is the point where I realised that I was a lesbian, raced into the nearest hairdresser and said, "Chop them off! I want to be butch, I want to look like a dyke!" Yay. From Mormon to dyke with just 2 snips of the scissors. Well, actually, it wasn't quite as simple as that, I must confess. Now, when I say I didn't know that lesbians existed till I was 17, it's completely true. I was very naive. I was a Mormon. So it wasn't till I went to college, when I was 17, that I discovered that lesbians existed, because I did psychology at college. And one year I did a unit called Abnormal Psychology. And in the chapter headed Psychosexual Disorders, in between coprophilia and sadomasochism was this word lesbian and a picture of 2 chicks kissing. Right? And I freaked out. Because the penny dropped, you know, it finally sinked in. Oh my goodness, I think I'm one of them. That explains why I thought I was never really going to get married. But then if you knew some of the Mormon boys that I knew, this would not surprise you. But, you know, lesbian, that was just a bit too much. So it was 2 years of praying and fasting and praying and fasting until finally God lost. I forget what triggered it now, but God lost. I became an atheist and a lesbian on the same day. And here's a trick for anyone who's coming out to religious parents. Tell them both at the same time. Hi, Mum, I've got something to tell you. I'm an atheist. Oh, and just by the way, I'm a lesbian too. Because you're moving target. They don't know what to react to first. It's like, you're what? You're what? Oh, yes, my poor Mormon mother. Poor old Mormons in general, in fact, because, you know, I've given them a bit of grief over the years, doing my comedy, and they don't quite like it. So I thought I'd let them off a little easy this time round and just tell you the single most scary thing about the Mormon Church. This is, as I recollect it, this is purely my recollection. I'm not stating this as a matter of fact, just in case you're out there, Mr. Mormon lawyer. Hello. Allegedly. That's the word I think you should always use in these cases. Right. As I remember it, single most scary thing. Now, if Mormon boys are very good and they manage to make it to top Mormon heaven, because they've got 3, because they're Americans, they manage to make it to top Mormon heaven, the celestial kingdom, they can go on to further study and become gods themselves. With their own planets and their own creation. Now this, of course, is not an option open to Mormon girls. We just get to marry gods. And presumably do a lot of baking. And maybe helping out in the office a couple of days a week. Mormon boys becoming gods. Now, if you pursue this thought to its logical extension, you come to the very horrific, I feel, subjectively, proposition that in the future, somewhere in the universe, someone will get to heaven and find out that God is Donny Osmond. I'm a little bit country, I'm a little bit rock and roll. Hey, come on in now. Hey, we don't have to get those teeth fixed, ain't we? No! I'd rather go to hell. But 19 years a Mormon. It has left me scarred. The scariest thing about having been a Mormon for that long is there's this little group of brain cells that have stayed Mormon. No matter what I do, they are still there, they are Mormon, and they hide in different spots in my brain. They're very good at camouflage. And they pop out at the most inconvenient bloody moments. I remember once I was walking into a lesbian bar and I got through the doors and saw all these girls and I was just looking around and suddenly had this huge Mormon flashback. And I just stood there absolutely transfixed to the spot going, oh my God, there are lesbians here. What am I doing? What will the bishop think? And then someone gave me a cold beer and it was fine. Probably, though, the most visible scarring from having been a Mormon for that long is that I am obsessed by religious stupidity and trivia. I can't get enough. I find myself just sitting in dark corners thinking about things. And I realised a couple of years ago it was going too far and I really had to put an end to this obsession because it was making me do increasingly stupid things. For instance, a couple of years back, I actually auditioned for a part in Jesus Christ Superstar. Yes, I went up for the part of Mary Magdalene. Gave what I thought was a very realistic rendition of I don't know how to love him. What to do, how to please him, wouldn't have a clue. Have to ask someone else. Completely beyond my sphere of knowledge. So when I'm sitting in the dark corners, some of the things I think about is, see, I've never understood why we even have religion. I don't get it. I can understand people thinking there might be some sort of superior thing floating out there in the universe. But, you know, what's with all the books and buildings and dogma and stained glass windows and candles and incense and big hats and pretty frocks? If there is someone out there, couldn't we have just gone, oh, grouse, planet, tar, and gone about our business? What did we need all this nonsense for? And I was trying to think logically how it might have started. And I remembered, you know, that before there was the god, there was the goddess. Quick note. In some certain sections of certain audiences, this particular routine does not go down very well. I should like to point out in advance that this is not a serious academic thesis. It's comedy. Thank you, sisterhood. Right, before there was a god, there was a goddess. Still didn't explain it to me. Until one day, my girlfriend had the worst PMT ever. She was a bear. I was running around the house going, would you like a cup of tea? Would you like me to massage your feet? Please don't hit me. And then it suddenly clicked. This is how religion started all those years ago with a cranky goddess. Because a tribe would get together and go, oh, it's that time of the month. Quick dance for the goddess. Sing for the goddess. Would you like some wine, goddess? And of course, when the boys took over, they went, once a month? Ha! We want to be worshipped once a week. Now, if that bit's gone particularly badly, I tend to stop there. But sometimes I just want to push it that little bit further. Because another thing I was thinking about is why aren't women allowed to fight in combat positions in the armed forces? Now, I think most of you will agree. I reckon I could do it. I think I'd be pretty scary with an AK-47. Even without one. And there's a whole heap of bullshit reasons about why women can't fight. I reckon the real reason is, if women fought, men would be scared shitless. Because it's my theory that if you got a big enough group of women together and you timed it right... Yes, I think you're with me. Right. So they've all got PMT at the same time. All you'd have to do is simply point them in the right direction and say, they ate all the chocolate. That'd be it. War would be no more. It would be too scary to pursue. Slight change of pace now. Something else I am, to add to the ever-increasing list, I'm also an incest survivor, which is not a topic that comedians talk about often, really, but it does make quite an impressive list. 6 foot, missing-toothed, ex-Mormon, lesbian, stand-up comic, incest survivor. I could almost get a grant. Just to breathe. In fact, I sometimes think that my life was scripted by Monty Python at birth. I can almost see them gathered round my cradle going, make her a Mormon! What happened was this. I was sexually abused by my stepfather from the age of about 13, 14. I can't really remember when it started. It stopped when I was 17, but I never talked about it. And when I finally told my mother when I was 21, she did what, unfortunately, a lot of mothers did back in the 80s. She refused to believe me. She thought I was making it up to get rid of my stepfather. But then we confronted him, he admitted it. And then she turned around and said, well, he's really sorry. Why can't you forgive him? So not surprisingly, I left home. And I decided to go back to college to finish off the degree I'd started about 4 years before. And I went to apply for Oz study. And I'd left it rather late, so I had to go into the big head office in Sydney at the time and line up with all the other late people. And I finally got to the head of the queue. This really bored man behind the counter went, what do you want? Look, I'd like to apply for Oz study. I don't quite qualify for the independent rate, but the minute I got the word independent, he was off. Are you married? Are you over 25? Do you have children? I'm going, no. Well, you don't qualify for the independent rate. I said, yes, I know that. I actually want to apply for the dependent rate, but just have it go on my mother's income level, not my stepfather's. And why would we do that? Now, I was a bit sick of the man by then. So I just looked him straight in the eye and said, because my stepfather sexually abused me from the age of 14 and I want nothing to do with him in the future, particularly when it comes to financial matters. And the man crumpled. I'll just get my superior! He raced off, he got his superior, who dragged me off into this private office, very worried because, everyone thinks it happened 5 minutes ago. He sat me down, just looked at me and went, would you like a cup of tea? I got off study. I went back to college. And I was very bad year, very depressed. I was consulting the $4 a cask red wine counsellor. Rather too much. I was having horrible nightmares and I was drinking heaps. And it was around that time I made probably the stupidest suicide attempt in the history of the word stupid. I actually attempted to slash my wrists with a butter knife. That's all we had in the house. My flatmate came home and just went, it's a butter enough. Bloody get some therapy. I'm sick of this. And she made an appointment for me to see this counsellor down at the Women's Health Centre, and I really didn't want to go, but they insisted. So I found myself sitting opposite this woman, sort of staring at my dented wrists. She sat there with her notebook going, "So what seems to be the problem?" Well, I just read this book that reckons I'm an alcoholic. And I've just broken up with my lover, which is, it's a woman, by the way, because I'm a lesbian. I lost my faith a couple of years ago, and that's still really quite weird for me. And tell me, what faith were you? I was a Mormon. Really? And last year, I disclosed the fact that, I'd been sexually abused by my stepfather. Now, you say your stepfather. What happened to your real father? Well, actually, he was killed in the Granville train smash. No, it's all right, actually, because, I barely knew him, and he was an alcoholic anyway. By this time, she's got a whole page of notes, and she just looked at me and went, "Is there anything else?" I said, "Oh, I think that's about it." And she just looked at me and went, "Would you like a cup of tea?" Another year after that, around my birthday, I got a phone call from my little sister who had just turned 16, and she said she wanted to leave home. Could she come and live with me? And I went, "Sure, fine." Responsibility doesn't freak me out, no problem. And I called my friend Leonie, and we got in a car, drove up to the Blue Mountains to meet Chrissy in this pub downtown, away from my parents' house. And we're sitting there drinking, and we're going, "Yes, of course, come and live with me, that's right, yes. Make it a double, thank you." "Okay, we'll do it tonight. Another double, thank you." And we all got in Leonie's Volkswagen and drove up to my parents' house. And I walked in first, and I said, "Chrissy's leaving home. She wants to come and live with me, and she's coming now." And all hell broke loose. Chrissy races off to her bedroom, is packing bags and throwing them out the window to Leonie, who's packing them in the car. My stepfather is yelling at me going, "Who the hell do you think you are walking into this house like this?" And I'm just trying to ignore him. And Chrissy is still packing bags and throwing them out the window. "Do you need all that, Chrissy?" Stepfather still yelling, and finally goes, "Oh, you think you've suffered? Well, I've suffered too. And besides, it takes two to tango." Now, I'm not a violent person, but I saw red, so I picked him up. He's only little. Threw him against the wall, thought I could leave it at that. Kicked him in the balls twice, really hard, felt very good. By now, it's chaos. Chrissy has jumped out the window. She's in the car, ready to go. I try to run out of the house, but my mother tries to pull me back. I break free. Out, race into the yard, leap into the car. Chrissy's there, try to pull the door shut, but my mother is pulling from the other side so that my stepfather can drag me out. We're pulling at the door. She realised finally that I'm stronger than her, so she tries to slam the door on my fingers. Misses. Windows up, doors locked. Tried to do a screaming U-turn out of the driveway like Sigourney Weaver in Aliens. But there's not enough room. We have to do a 3-point turn. And as we are slowly reversing, there's this tapping at the window. I look up and it's my mother going, "Excuse me, stepfather dropped his glasses in the car. Would you mind passing them out?" And I thought, And like I say, we went back to Leonie's house and had a cup of tea. And my advice to anyone else out there who's been through a similar thing is the best revenge is to be happier than the fuckwit who tried to fuck with you. And if you at all possibly can, humiliate them on national television. Thank you very much.